Welcome to the Fiscal Fortress. Michelle.meiming, a distinguished lawyer, and Eric.chung, a veteran hedge fund manager, deliver insightful commentary on finance and the law and actionable advice. The Fiscal Fortress, where wealth meets wisdom.
Hey, Michelle, it's great to see you, and Happy New Year. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Eric. Happy New Year to you as well. How was your holiday?
It was really good. I spent a couple of weeks with my family in Lake Tahoe. Both of my kids are on the Palisades ski team. And we spent 2 full weeks there. The conditions were so-so. There were some really good days, but there was also a lot of rain. But we were super grateful. It was very relaxing to spend time with friends and family there. How about you?
Well, I headed toward the opposite direction. I went on a cruise down south to Mexico, and it was a lot of fun. It was a group of 26 people, which was a large crowd, but we spent 2 birthdays, my son and my mom's birthday there, as well as New Year's Eve. So it was very festive.
Oh my gosh, 26 people. That sounds really, really fun and potentially stressful. I could see that.
There were some moments, yes.
I'll bet. Well, it sounds like a story for another day. In preparation for the very first episode of 2025 for the Fiscal Fortress, I was thinking about an interesting topic. And for my topic, I recently did a retrospective to think about the things that I was grateful for in 2024. And I wanted to share the most profitable investment that I made for the Lighthaven Fund. So that was going to be my topic for today. But how about you? What's your topic?
My topic was thinking back on the last year. There were times where I was surprised when one of the some of the beneficiaries are not as thrilled as I would expect them to be when they're inheriting an asset, and I'll be happy to go into why.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good topic. I would have thought that universally people, obviously you've just lost a loved one, so that's horrible. But just from an inheritance perspective, I would have thought that would be something that people would be happy about. So yeah, can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, but Eric, tell us, I think it's always great to look back and be grateful. What was the biggest decision that you made that you were very thrilled with?
Yeah, in 2024, and this is a very timely thing given the political events, the thing that I was grateful for has something to do with Trump and cryptocurrency. And let me tell you the story. And the story begins back in the middle of 2024 when I was invited to attend a conference in Nashville, Tennessee. Interestingly, I love Nashville because I went to law school at Vanderbilt, so very much in love with that town. But I was invited to go to the Bitcoin 2024 conference. And many prominent industry leaders in the crypto industry, as well as politicians, such as congressmen and senators, were speaking at this conference. But the headliner was Donald Trump. And this was actually pretty surprising to me because prior to 2024, Trump was one of the most ardent critics of cryptocurrency. He was staunchly anti-crypto. But at this conference, and imagine this is at the biggest sports stadium in Nashville. There's tens of thousands of people packed into this stadium, this huge conference room venue, massive 30-foot, 40-foot video screens. Trump's on stage, and he announces 2 things that were really, really interesting. The first thing he said is that if he got elected as president on day 1, he would fire the chairman of the SEC, Gary Gensler. And when he said that, the whole crowd erupted. And this is because if you've been following the news, there has been a perception that the SEC has been regulating by enforcement rather than giving guidance to the crypto industry. So the crypto industry felt that they were being treated very unfairly compared to banks and public companies. So that got that was very newsworthy, but more of a political stunt, honestly. But the second thing that he mentioned, which I had not heard, and this was really, really news to me and was really surprising. He announced that if he was elected president, he would establish the very first United States Bitcoin strategic reserve, similar to like the country has a gold and an oil reserve. He said that he would endorse and pass a law or approve the law that would require that the U.S. government buy and hold 1 million Bitcoins. And that's roughly like 5% of the total supply of Bitcoin. And I thought that was really interesting. It's something that once he got elected, a lot of pieces really, really came together for me. He not only made that promise, but he appointed somebody that we know from listening to the All In podcast, David Sachs, as the AI and crypto czar. It also came out that his sons, Eric and Barron Trump, had set up a company, I think it's called World Liberty Financial, which is essentially a crypto company for their family. So you could just see that he had flipped from being anti-crypto to pro-crypto. And once he got elected, I put all these pieces together and actually put a pretty significant portion of the fund's assets in Bitcoin the very next day he got elected. And that turned out to be a very profitable trade for the fund.
Well, that sounds like a great decision. And I wish that I could have attended the conference as well. But speaking of cryptocurrency, I'm sure, and things that some of my clients inherit, I'm sure they would have been thrilled if they also could inherit Bitcoin. On the other hand, though, when I think about last year, there are some assets and some things that when beneficiaries were told that they were inheriting, they weren't as thrilled about. And so the first one that comes to mind, though, is when they inherit real estate or some kind of property that they have to share with another sibling or another person. And the reason why that can be complicated is because if it's real estate or something else where there are taxes that have to be paid, and sometimes the dynamics between the siblings or the other person doesn't see eye to eye with the client, and so it causes problems. If one person, for instance, has a job and the one that doesn't, and they own a property together, then it usually winds up that the person with the job winds up doing all the deferred maintenance, all the repairs, and pays all the taxes while they both have their names on titles. So that can tend to be a problem.
Well, it's interesting you should say that. I have a good friend who's English, and he recently, his father passed away, and he inherited 1/3 interest in a farm back in England. And I don't know the exact details, but he's here in the United States. His two sisters are in England, and they both live on the farm. And apparently it is complicated. You think like, oh, it's clearly a good thing, but there's a lot of things that they had to work through and potential drama. So this is real.
It would bring back the childhood problems of who's the more responsible and who just gets to ride on the coattails of the other person. So that can be complicated. Another thing that caused some complications was also when the parents left the children with a lifetime use of a house, for instance. And so when one of the children found out that they have to wait for one of the siblings to pass away in order for that house to be sold and distributed, that causes problems because that could be a 20 or 30 year wait or more. So understandably, that is not what they were hoping to hear.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like that's a long time, actually. And during that 20 or 30 year period, typically, how does it work? Do both of the kids still have to be responsible for the maintenance and the care and feeding of that property, or is it case by case?
It is case by case. So it really comes down to how much thought was taken to prepare the documents. If the attorney drafted it well, then it would be very specific in terms of who would be paying for the property taxes, who would be paying for the repairs, such as a new roof, new windows, things like that, because it would be a bad scenario if the person who was not living in the house and didn't have the free lifetime, of free rent, also had to pay for all the expenses and liabilities. So the trust should be very clear. Otherwise, both the kids would have to go to court and have a judge decide on that and make it clear who's paying.
Oh, that sounds like a total nightmare. Again, something that seemingly at least on a financial basis seems like a positive thing. Yeah, that could turn into a lot of drama and hassle.
Yes, and then there's other things such as when real estate, like you mentioned with your friend, is out of the state or out of the country. It is hard to manage. So a lot of times, even if it's a good thing to have something that's of financial value, unfortunately, the oversight of it is not going to be convenient.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I guess where my mind goes is these are all legitimate concerns. What can people do about this to preempt these issues?
It would be good for the person while they are alive, the current owners, to say that these assets can be sold immediately upon the death of both people, because by saying that they have to wait another lifetime for one of the kids to get free rent there is just going to be too long to wait for that child to pass away in order for it to be distributed. So the best thing to do is just say that the trustee, the successor trustee, can immediately sell any of these assets without having any sentimental attachment and having to preserve the real estate so that they can just immediately liquidate it.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Are there situations where currently there's a child living in the property, and if so, like if you put a provision like that in there, how would you make it so that child would be protected or could reasonably have enough time to move out, like to make it as not make it too disruptive for that child?
I would say that if that's the case, try to look at other assets that the parents had, and to let perhaps as much as possible that real estate to stay with the child who needs the house to continue to live in, but that every other asset aside from that real estate to go to the other siblings.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it seems like, and this is a common theme that we've been talking about. Like, this requires some thought and planning, right? Like, you don't want to just kind of just say, oh, I'm going to just give my stuff to the kids. Yeah, equal shares. Like, that seems fair.
On everything.
It seems fair. But like, if you don't think through these very likely scenarios and these details, you're actually causing a lot of potential problems for your heirs.
Mm-hmm, that's right. To try to oversimplify things and not think ahead means that there's a lot of potential for conflict when the parents pass away.
Definitely.
Then other things that are more obvious in terms of what people could inherit is, for instance, collectibles. And so I can speak from personal experience. I feel a bit ungrateful to say this, but when people like myself, I inherited, truly love my father, and he loved collecting things such as stamps and coins. And these are heavy binders that he put everything in and organized. And so when I received them, that is, of course, wonderful because it means so much to him, and therefore it means a lot to me. But I don't know what to do with it. I can't sell it. I don't have the good, I don't feel comfortable with selling something that is so precious. But at the same time, because it's not a hobby of mine, it's hard for me to know what to do with it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting problem. I imagine a lot of people are in the same boat. Interestingly, I know a guy, I live in Piedmont, and he's probably 39, relatively young guy, but he's really into stamps and coins. There are still people out there who really, really treasure and love these hobbies. But yeah, these are difficult situations, and every generation, they're going to pass on things that the next generation just maybe doesn't know what to do with, or just doesn't have the same, we don't have the same connection to those hobbies and those pastimes.
That's right. And some of these assets could be really, in terms of finding a place to store them. For instance, I know somebody who has a ton of cars, and so he even rents out space to keep all these cars. And so anybody who takes over it also takes on the debt and the expense of maintaining the cars. And people also, I know that, who have wine collections and rent out space just to store that wine at the right temperature.
Yeah, these are complicated scenarios. I know if I was in that situation, I'd feel really conflicted. I wouldn't want to sell this stuff because that would seem like disloyal, heartless, towards my folks. But then again, like if I had the good fortune of inheriting wine or cars and I'm not into those things, like I definitely wouldn't want to spend a ton of money to maintain that. So it's a catch-22 for sure.
That's right. It's much easier for somebody and much happier for them to inherit crypto.
That's true.
Assuming they have the password.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's actually a really big issue. There are people who pass away and, maybe they're engineers or they're really technologically savvy, but then they pass away and their kids or their spouse, don't know where to find the crypto, don't know how to unlock it, don't know how to sell it. I mean, that's a very significant issue, actually.
Mm-hmm. It's really important to talk about these digital assets and just plan ahead. And just the best thing is to also just talk to a lawyer, talk to a professional who can help guide the client through this.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, on that note, super interesting discussion. We should probably wrap up for this episode. I did want to just offer to our viewers, I recently wrote a book, or I guess it's not that recent, I wrote it about 2 years ago, a book on investing called The Long and the Short of It. And I just wanted to offer up to any of our viewers, if you're interested in receiving a complimentary copy of the book, I'm happy to send it to you. Just feel free to email me. I'm at Eric, E-R-I-C, at lighthavencapital.com. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful. I'll put the email in the show notes. But feel free to email me and I'll send you a copy of the book.
Yes, I can personally say that I read the book and it was a great read. It was definitely talks about investing principles and definitely I enjoyed reading it very much and still refer to it.
Thanks for the kind words. Really appreciate that.
And also, if you have any suggestions and comments on how we can make this show more interesting, cover a topic that is on your mind, please do let us know in the comments or reach out to us directly.
Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you on our next episode. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.